Thanks, Linda. And welcome everyone to the House Agriculture and Forestry Committee meeting live on YouTube. And I'm Representative Carolyn Partridge. I chair the committee, and you can see all the folks, my good folks here on line. We are, as usual, going to be covering COVID-19 related agricultural issues. And today is go day for the farmers markets, but we want to make sure that everybody understands that there are some requirements that they have to meet in order to hold their farmers markets. And we've invited Abby Willard from the agency and Steve Collier, who's the general counsel for the agency, to join us. So Abby, welcome. And you sent out the farmers market guidance, which I've reviewed. I'm sure all of my committee members have reviewed that. And so would you like to just go over and kind of give us a narrative about what's going to be required?
Sure. Good morning, committee. Nice to see you all. So I'm Abby Willard, Agency of Agriculture. And yeah, so farmers markets are able to open today, May 1st. So rabbit, a new month. And we just held a call last night with the Vermont Farmers Market Association, hosted by NOFA. And there were 30 some odd markets represented on the call, and we shared the frequently asked questions document with them. They asked lots of great questions. It felt like a really productive call. I might even just start by saying they did a quick poll of those market members that were on the call, and 68% felt that they could comfortably open under these new guidelines. 16%, which I think is about 5 markets that were represented on the call, felt like they are unsure whether they'll be able to open, and another 16%, or about 5 markets, said that they probably will not open for the season. Probably due to a result of many circumstances, but related to the guidance and the frequently asked questions interpretation.
Abby, do you think that if things change, let's say in June, that they would maybe start up, or is it just not financially worth it to them?
Yeah, I think it can go both ways. I think there are some markets that if the guidelines shift, they may be more inclined to be able to open. For other markets, they were pretty clear that they function based on vendor fees, and that if they don't have the ability for full vendor representation at the market, they may not be in a financial situation to be able to open.
Okay.
So I think it will likely be an individualized decision of each market.
And one of the guidance points was that only food and basically essential stuff was allowed. And do you potentially, I should actually just let you go through this, but just, I know that there's at least one legislator who's very interested in whether or not she does sewing and does aprons and things like that. And I know she's going to ask if you think eventually some of the crafts people will be able to open up, going by the guidelines and everything else.
Yeah. So yeah, let me start by, I wanted to just sort of give you the frame of kind of the most recent conversation we had with the community, and then maybe go through what currently exists in the guidance, as well as sort of some of the frequently asked questions. There were also questions, obviously, from the farmers market community of when we thought this might lessen and open be different than today. And I think generally the answer to that question is we don't know. But as the circumstances are today, markets are able to open as long as they're following other kind of parameters and requirements. Oh, look at those beautiful daffodils. I love it. That markets can sell food and beverage items at the market. And those food and beverage items can be raw, they can be value added, they can be prepared, prepackaged. They just need to be consumed off-site. There was clarity in the guidance that there's really looking at farmers markets as a pre-order and prepay arrangement, more like a food distribution location, as opposed to the traditional market environment that many individuals are familiar with and comfortable with. So some of the decisions that were clarified yesterday with the community and included in that FAQ document that we shared with you all yesterday as well. So far, vendors are able to sell edible plant starts that will soon be food, closed container beverages that aren't to be consumed on site. They can do bakery items, they can do raw product, they can do canned preserves and food put by, and all other food and beverage items that again are prepackaged and intended to be consumed off-site. There were a lot of questions around non-edible ag products. And so that would be fiber or fleeces, cut flowers, body care products, beeswax candles, goat's milk soap. And those items, because they're not food or beverage and aren't consumable, they're not currently allowed at the market. And that, the question, do you want me to?
How about goat's milk soap? Couldn't they pre-order that and throw it in a box or something?
Right, so that's a great point, Representative Partridge. So we're saying that those non-edible ag products and non-ag products that are jewelry, crafts, note cards, kind of sewing items would, because again, they're non-edible, would not be allowed at the market. But because farms have been deemed essential, they have been open from the very beginning of the Stay Home, Stay Safe executive order. And so vendors at the farmers market are able to arrange for those non-edible items to be picked up at the farm, to be ordered and mailed to the individual customer, or even picked up by curbside pickup at a location that's not the market. Again, the goal being not to add congregation of people for non-essential items at the farmers market.
Okay, that's helpful, Abby, thanks.
Yeah. Were there other questions about that so far?
Sharon's hands up. Sharon.
Thank you. So if I needed to buy some soap or hand sanitizer and I drove to Hannaford's to do it, how is that different? I'm pushing back a little bit because I feel like our farmers market shouldn't be held to a higher standard than our grocery stores, or a different standard, except for where the unique differences between those two settings is requires it. And so I understand jewelry or really cool hats being not allowed, but I feel like soap or natural, kind of natural artisanal hand sanitizers absolutely should be allowed at the farmers market. I can go to Hannaford right now and go there and buy nothing but soap and expose myself to a lot more than I would at a farmer's market if they're doing the social distancing practices.
Yeah, so thanks for bringing up the hand sanitizer topic. The secretary felt really strongly that he wanted there to be an exception allowable for hand sanitizers containing greater than 60% alcohol to be allowed for sale at the farmer's market. So that is the one non-edible allowance at this time to be sold at farmers markets.
I hope they add soap soon.
Not at this time, so far. I mean, I think we appreciate the question and the concern, and I think that the overall messaging, and Steve may have some piece here that he wants to also contribute if you're open to that, is that there's still grave concern around the public health risk of bringing people together for non-essential purposes. And the farmers market gathering place is really designed to be pre-order, prepay, distribution of product that's essential to customers. And because farms are still open, if someone wanted to sell soap to their customers, they could mail it to them. They could make it available for pickup at their farm stand, at the farm, at the house. But those opportunities for engagement with customers are still allowable. So that's not being restricted. We're just saying, don't come out in public and gather with other people that are here for essential food items or beverage items, and also think that there will be non-essential items available.
Thanks, Abby. John O'Brien has his hand up, and then Vicky. John?
Hi, Abby. No, I was just
Hi.
echoing Sharon's concerns too, that once again, it seems like we could sew a nasturtium into an apron and the famous nasturtium and sell it as an edible. And what about vendors who have some of both? You know, if you have, I sell eggs and chapstick, you have to keep half of that home or just instruct people to come by the farm. It just seems right compared to the box stores, the supermarkets, general stores that you buy food and you buy other stuff, and yet farmers markets are sort of unfairly being censored.
Yeah, so at this time, if you are a diverse operation and vendor, you can bring your edible items for sale to the farmers market. And those items that are non-edible, you can take orders for your aprons or for your soaps, and again, make alternative arrangements for people to pick them up or have them delivered to them in some other way at this time.
Okay, Vicky?
Thank you, Abby. I know there's a lot of thought going into all of this. I was just wondering if it's actually fluid in the sense of, my goodness, every day we're seeing states open and different types of protocols. And are you getting pushback from some of the farms at all, these folks? Because really, people are starting to get anxious and they want to get back to work and back to shop. I'm just expressing some angst from constituents. I've had numerous calls this week saying, please tell the governor. And I tell them, please email the governor yourself. But in the meantime, is this something that you see as maybe week by week, really? As far
I think
as
that's a great question. Yeah. And the farmers market community last night asked the same thing. They said, like, at what interval of time are you going to re-propose more lax kind of guidance around farmers markets to the administration? And I would say, I don't think that we as an agency have a particular time frame in mind as to how quickly and how frequently we're going to do that. But I think that's a very fair request to say that as businesses continue to open, and if the theme of Fridays being the days that new sectors and new environments are opening up in new ways continues, that we will make sure that farmers markets, being one of the first that was authorized to open to some degree, would continue to be reevaluated for what kind of fits and what's appropriate for the kind of restarting the economy efforts that are underway. So we hear that and agree that we're going to continue to have to put farmers markets back on the table, ask that there be some additional allowances considered as time goes on. I think the question is the when, which we don't know, whether that's in a week, in a month. Again, I feel like the importance of providing guidance now as of May 1st was, and actually they got it on the 24th, was for markets to be able to plan. And we felt that it was really important that they understand what vendors would be allowed to be there, what products could be sold, what layout and expectations around physical distancing and health and safety they needed to take into consideration to be able to be open, so that we were giving them some adequate time to make those decisions as an organization, as well as communicate those expectations to their vendors as well as to their customers. The world may actually look a fair bit different on June 1st when most markets start to open. And we have, 4 weeks in that time frame where all sorts of things could change.
Thanks, Abby. It also sounds like there's a little bit of wiggle room and latitude in terms of workarounds for some folks to make things happen too. So,
Yeah, I think the reminder that farms are open and farms can engage in commerce with customers in a variety of ways is a really important message.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
You want to continue? And Steve, feel free to jump in if you feel like you need to. Thanks.
So let's see. So some of the other pieces that were captured in the guidance are really about the expectations of so many businesses. So I can just sort of run through those quickly, though I think these are pretty understood, and frankly, these aren't the issues that, well, that's not true. There are some markets that are struggling with the pieces of this. So, acknowledgement that each market needs to adhere to the municipal requirements and permits needed to be able to be open. Strong recommendation that markets promote their customers to wear facial coverings while at the market. So not currently a requirement, but a recommendation. Vendors, though, do need to wear facial covering when they're engaging with others, including servicing and supporting, working with their customers. Another piece to kind of facilitate that concept of a pre-order, prepaid distribution model is that vendors must offer online or phone ordering options as an incentivization to see more pre-order, prepaid pickup occurring at the market. What the markets asked yesterday, and we hadn't actually clearly articulated this in the guidance, but I think we made the right call. They asked that if you made a pre-order for pickup at the market, did it need to be a curbside pickup? And I don't believe that it needs to. So you could pre-order product and still pick it up at the vendor's table at the market if that's what works better for you. And that may be because you haven't paid for that product yet, and so you want to pay at the vendor booth. It may be because all vendors don't have the capacity to have a runner that's managing their curbside pickup, as well as someone at the booth that's managing in-person orders. So I think markets are going to try to figure out the best way that works for them to be able to accommodate as many of those customers that have called ahead, ordered in advance, and those that are there in person to shop for the first time.
And Abby, it sounds to me like, having read the guidance, that cash, while discouraged, can be used, but exact change is really preferred. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's an important distinction. So when markets couldn't have any person-to-person contact previously, that meant that you really couldn't do payment at a curbside pickup. And so that's a change to this updated guidance. So you can do payment at the site. And that also allows for EBT transactions, crop cash, double bucks to be processed for that SNAP recipient population that have to do it in person. And so that was an important addition and really important to the administration to make sure that EBT transactions could occur at farmers markets.
And Abby, we've heard about EBT cards, of course, and crop cash, although some folks might not be totally clear about it, but what are double bucks?
So double bucks, sorry, that's the same as crop cash. So the concept of crop cash and double bucks is that you can double the value of your SNAP benefits with crop cash being provided to that SNAP recipient population to be able to be spent at a farmer's market on edible food items and plant starts. So there's also restrictions around what they can buy, but
okay, thanks.
It's really doubling the value of your 3 Squares Vermont benefits.
Right, thanks.
Yeah. One piece that we heard some feedback on was the decision to have booths at a 12-foot spacing between them. Since many markets will have in-person shopping, some may elect not to, but those that do have in-person shopping need to have kind of one directional flow of kind of coming into the market area and leaving the market area, having hand sanitizer or hand washing stations at the entrance and the exit, with signs that if you're sick or been in contact with someone that's COVID positive or has symptoms, please don't enter the market. And as well as the 6-foot distancing markers so that people that are waiting to visit a booth or waiting to enter the market are not standing in groups, but kind of are following that physical distancing requirements. To be honest, I think some markets are trying to understand how they're going to do 12-foot spacing of booths. I think that's going to be a challenge for certain locations based on their size and their setup. but they are, what I appreciate about this population is they're willing to try to figure it out. I think they're taking the public health and safety responsibilities seriously. I think they are understanding a little bit more where we're all collectively coming from. And I believe that they're going to do their best to be able to accommodate the number of vendors that want to be at the market, and offering in-person shopping opportunities, and how they'll be able to configure their setup, which will be different, obviously, than how they normally are set up.
Right, right. And I think, if, for instance, the one I tend to go to is Londonderry because it's closest, but you know, given that the crafts people will not be able to participate,
Right.
there might be an opportunity to spread people out a little bit more.
Yeah, and again, I think we're empathetic to the craft people, and we're getting emails from folks that are sell perennials and other plants that are non-edible, and feel like, there's a lot of kind of health and benefit to having that product available. And I think I would just continue to say that I think our message from the kind of state and the administration in general is that you can still make those products available, but just not at a public gathering place like a farmer's market at this time.
Thanks, Abby. Sharon's hand is up. Sharon?
Thank you. It occurred to me that if I was going to go to a farmer's market and halfway there I realized I'd forgotten my cloth mask, I think it makes a lot of sense to allow the sale of cloth masks at farmers markets, because then I could call ahead and I could say, you know what, I want to pre-order a cloth mask. I would pull over on the side of the road. I wouldn't do that while I was driving. If I had cell phone service anywhere around here.
Lots of ifs, yeah.
And that way I could get a curbside delivery of that cloth mask, and then I could do my shopping. And I really feel like cloth masks should be added to the list of essentials allowed for sale, because they're going to be people who show up who, just like the reusable shopping bags that people always leave at home, and they get to the grocery store and realize, oh, I forgot my shopping bags. People who care and want to do the right thing, they're going to be doing the same thing with their cloth masks. And so I'm going to advocate that. I think that should be an item that is absolutely allowed at the farmers markets, so that, for the reasons I just explained.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
All right. John O'Brien's hand is up. John.
Abby, is there any agency guidance on thinking how farmers markets are so social and social gatherings? Is there any guidance on entertainment? Like, is music discouraged, or clowns tying rubber balloons, and even bringing of children and pets to markets? Because maybe we can use common sense, but that certainly adds an element of a not so safe situation.
Yeah, so the guidance did offer some kind of language about that. As far as music is concerned, markets need to suspend all entertainment activities, children's activities, or any, music, sampling, cooking demonstration, again, anything that's encouraging people to congregate, for the same reason that you can't kind of stop at the market, drink a cup of coffee and have a donut right now. You could buy a to-go coffee and you could buy a bag of donuts to bring home to your family, but it's really not encouraged that you're going to linger and stay at the market for any amount of time, and the sense that music may incentivize that is why it's being restricted or suspended. And the same guidance was given around shopping practices, so really encouraging you to not bring your families, but for you to come as an individual, get your essential needs and do your shopping, get it done, buy the food and beverage that you need, and then bring it home to your family. So one additional piece that came up around that particular topic is around prepared food. And so what became really clear was that you can provide prepared food in to-go containers to be consumed off-site at the farmer's market. So that prepared food could be prepared off-site and brought to the market in to-go containers and sold. That prepared food could actually be cooked on site, packaged in to-go containers, sold for consumption off-site. So there is this potential for even food vendors or food trucks to be able to presumably function at a farmer's market in alignment with the guidance, as long as, again, their packaging material to be consumed off-site and to be taken away. Which I think that's good news. I mean, we've debated this, but food is food, and if your family is tired of cooking like mine is, you might appreciate having some to-go food from a farmer's market using local ingredients that you're going to quickly go and get your few essential things and bring home breakfast or lunch. And
Fantastic, Abby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saved at least one good thing for the end for you.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like most farmers markets and vendors are pretty tuned in to what the agency and the administration has done. And I'm wondering, for folks who might be watching this YouTube presentation, or just in general want to know they're good farmers markets customers, where could folks go to find this information?
Yeah. So great question. I would say, just kind of to respond, I think there's so much activity within the farmers market community. They are so passionate about this conversation. They so want to be able to serve food and product to their communities and to their very loyal customer base. And for that reason, I think they're paying close attention. They're really engaged in asking a lot of questions. And so for that reason, they really prompted us to, in addition to the guidance, which is, a couple of pages in length, we also created the multi-page frequently asked questions document. And both of those can be found at the Agency of Agriculture. So agriculture.vermont.gov. And you can go to the COVID-19 page, and there's a FAQ section, and the frequently asked questions document is there. The guidance is actually linked right from our homepage as under agency news, I think. So both documents are very accessible. NOFA and other kind of organizations are providing lots of assisting support to farmers markets about looking at hand washing stations, thinking about how to do more volunteer recruitment to help the markets run more smoothly. So there's so much support for this community because I think there's just a lot of passion and appreciation for the contributions that they're making to making local food available.
Thanks. John Bartholomew has his hand up. John?
I kind of get the sense that the farmers markets are glad they don't want to rock the boat. They're just glad they're able to move forward in some way. And I personally don't feel the same obligation to avoid rocking the boat, and still feel kind of outraged that we are imposing on some businesses, small businesses, farmers, restrictions that other big businesses don't have. It seems to me if you can go into a grocery store, which I believe is a much more dangerous place than an open air market, and you can buy any kind of soap or any kind of flour, meaning, the ones in pots as opposed to bags, whatever is in a supermarket, or you can go into other establishments and buy stuff. Why can't you do it at the farmer's market? It's an unequal standard. It's not fair. And all it's doing is helping the big companies that don't need the help, or at least don't need it as much. There's no reason that we should be imposing different limitations of what can be sold at a farmer's market if you can go and buy the other stuff at a supermarket or at Home Depot or wherever. Makes no sense to me, and I think we ought to be pushing back on that as a committee.
Yeah, Representative, it's you share a common feeling of many others that this comparison between retail and farmers markets. And I guess the reaction that I have to that is I hear you, and I think under different circumstances, we may all be in agreement about that. I think where we are today is that farms can still sell their product. We're working hard to help farms get into retail establishments. So many vendors or many producers that had been selling to colleges, schools, and restaurants lost their markets overnight. And that was devastating to those businesses. And we've worked really hard, not just at the agency, but amongst kind of like the local food system community, to figure out how to help those businesses find new markets and expand their opportunity to sell food to customers in new and different ways. And the success of that has been outstanding. And I know that you guys have heard from Ellen Taylor, and the ability of businesses to make market shifts and pivot to new market channels has also been an outstanding example of how resilient our ag producers are and how open they are to really trying to be creative and find ways to still be viable businesses and still stay committed to serving their communities. So there's so many bright spots about how the ag community is responding at this time. There's devastating circumstances as well, but I think it's really important to acknowledge that many businesses have made the transformations that they have been able to, or been exposed to, or been guided towards, to be able to continue to sell local product. I think, and that could be doing online sales, that could be selling to retail and food co-ops in ways that they hadn't historically, or really just getting accustomed to having customers come to their home and increase their sales. Some farms, like as we've shared before, and as you've heard, are seeing, doubling and tripling of their membership. So people are really wanting to buy local food, and people are feeling more comfortable connecting directly with producers. So I feel really optimistic about the possibility for local food to still be available across Vermont. And I think, being a rural community state, we're very fortunate, because that's not obviously the case in other parts of the country.
You're in a position, though, of really needing to defend the decision, which is great. But what I'm saying is, I think that we as a committee need to speak out in a different way than the administration is.
Yeah.
I don't agree with this decision. And through this entire pandemic, all we're managing to do is to help online business and to help huge businesses, and at the expense of small businesses and farmers. And I just think we need to push back. And I understand why you feel that these decisions are the right ones, but I'm just disagreeing with you that, and I think that we ought to speak out. I don't know if anyone in the committee agrees with me, but there it is.
Okay, thanks. Oops. Hold on, guys. I lost you for a second. There. So we have several questions. John O'Brien has his hand up, Vicky has her hand up, and then Terry. So, and we have about 10 minutes left for our time today. So John, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, Carolyn, were we going to talk about garden centers and nurseries today with Mother's Day coming up? And it's segues from farmers markets too. And then the other thing, this morning, for example, I heard Kinney Drug was advertising hanging flower baskets for $9. So because they're a pharmacy, have they found this sweet spot that they don't have to meet the same requirements that our local garden centers and nurseries do?
Yeah, and I think, John, what we had determined was that if farm stores and farm stands were providing vegetable starts and produce, that they probably could sell hanging baskets with, some of the stipulations. So no more than a certain number of people in greenhouses, and hopefully some kind of easy way of paying where there's little contact. And so Abby might want to clarify that, but I know that many of, and then there is the nasturtium in the hanging basket, my friends, don't forget that. And So Abby, you might want to clarify that. I'm kind of conscious of time. So, you know, if we could make these answers somewhat succinct, I want to then go to Vicky and Terry. So Abby?
Sure, and again, Steve's worked on this more recently than I have, I'd say, in the last 48 hours, but nurseries, greenhouses, and garden centers have a very different arrangement than farmers markets. So the restrictions and the guidelines for that community is very different. The only restriction outside of following physical distancing and health and safety hygiene practices would be the limitation of the number of employees and visitors in the center at one time. And so that limit is no more than one customer per 200 square feet for retail space, or a maximum of 10 people in total at one time. And that 10 people includes both employees and customers. But they can still do curbside pickup. The people waiting for curbside pickup are not included in that 10-person count. That 10-person count is for those people that are shopping and looking at hanging baskets and buying plants. And those items don't need to be just edible. Those items can be ornamental, perennial, annuals, plant starts, or just plain pretty flowers, and that's fine.
Thanks, Abby.
Again, their main restriction is just number of people on the premises in the shopping retail area at one time.
Great, thank you. Vicky?
I appreciate Representative Bartholomew's pushing back, and I want to echo his concerns and think that we as a committee should really start talking a little more about this, because I feel like we're on a fine line, and a sense of urgency is building in my community and my constituents to say, you know, I really want to see my freedoms exercised. I've been in compliance, and I'm ready. It's 60 degrees out and the sun's shining. I want to get that t-shirt at that farmer's market I've been looking forward to. I think we're on the verge, and we should really feel the urgency of our constituents. So I want to echo some compassion for people, but also the sense that it's a double standard happening. And at some point, there's going to be more angst that we'll be dealing with. Abby, I'm sorry, you don't have to comment.
Yeah.
I just want to echo Representative Bartholomew's concerns, and I feel the same way.
Thanks, Vicky. Terry?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say I agree with Vicky. I think it's and John. I think it's time that we, you know, if everybody's going to wear a mask, which you could require, I feel it would probably be as safe as going to Shaw's and Hannaford's, and it's important for people to start getting out and doing those kind of things. And I was just going to ask Abby, I mean, she can plead the Fifth Amendment on this, but does the agency give recommendations to the governor on these things, or does the governor tell the agency what you guys need to do to, you know, implement these things? Because I'm just curious, but I can live without an answer.
I'll share as much as I can. We have been asked to propose guidance for a variety of different market sectors, farmers markets being the first. And we have used a public engagement process of at least pulling in one sector representative. In the case of farmers markets, we worked with NOFA Vermont and the Vermont Farmers Market Association on guidance recommendations for proposed language that, you know, collectively we could all live with. That information then does go through an administrative process that includes a variety of feedback from folks. And then a final decision is being made at that level.
Yeah, because I watched the part of the governor's, well, today is what, Friday? So it was Wednesday. And, you know, and there was a caller there that said, you know, when we first started this in March, the whole purpose was to level out the curve and to alleviate the big surge in hospitals and things like that. And it almost seems like that has happened, and and we have to kind of wonder, well, what is the purpose of what they're doing now? They're just keep continuing to change the criteria for what they're doing. I mean, it's going to be impossible, I believe, to eliminate everybody getting the virus. Possibly, the people that are the most susceptible are the ones that need to isolate. I mean, we all know we don't want our aunts and uncles and grandparents to be getting sick, but some people have to, live a life and move on and work, actually. I mean, it's our unemployment system is just a mess. It's irritates people, and we get that irritation from all the emails that we're receiving. So it's frustrating, but I know you can't help that. So, but thanks for all your efforts.
Yeah.
So the question, thanks. And Vicky, is your hand still up? Did you just not lower? Okay. So, and I want to echo what Terry just said, that we really appreciate all the work that's been done. We have about 3 minutes, and in response, the comments of John Bartholomew and Vicky and Terry and maybe others on the committee, I'm wondering if the committee would like to ask Mike O'Grady to take another stab at a letter to hopefully, not be irritated, but just to encourage, given some of the things that other stores are allowed to do, some kind of safe way of allowing our farmers markets folks, especially people who are doing hanging baskets for Mother's Day, things like that, which may not have nasturtium planted in them. But, I know that, well, it's complicated, but is there general agreement that you all would like to do something here? And if there is, you can nod your heads if you want, or put your thumbs up. And okay, I'm seeing thumbs up from many. Okay, yep, I see thumbs up from basically everybody. Can people other than the host see the thumbs up? Yeah, okay. So so perhaps we'd like to work on that. And what I'd like to do is have you, because we've got 1 minute left to be online, to have folks maybe chime in through email directly to me, maybe copy Mike O'Grady, who is with us right now, to talk about what we would like to do in terms of push the envelope a little bit. I mean, we're thankful for what's been done. We're thankful that the farmers markets are able to start as of today, but maybe we could make some good arguments for why some other products could be allowed. And that's just basically not us being angry or frustrated with the agency or the administration, but just representing our constituents. Does that sound good? All right. Good. Sharon's hand was up. We've got to get off of YouTube and get on the floor of the House momentarily. So Linda, would you like to take us off of YouTube? We thank everybody for joining us today, and hope that you will join us again next Tuesday at 9:30. So Linda?